All right, so we're back and ready to dive into another chapter of To Kill a Mockingbird. This time we're looking at chapter 27. And things shift, We're moving away from all that courtroom drama and starting to see how the Tom Robinson trial really messed things up for Maycomb.
Yeah, definitely. There's this feeling that things are kind of off in Maycomb, even though everyone's trying to get back to normal.
Exactly. Like everyone's holding their breath,
Yes.
waiting for something to happen.
Yeah.
So first off, we get Bob Ewell, right? He's trying to, grab back some power after the trial.
Right.
He manages to get himself a WPA job, but, and this is kind of ironic, he gets fired for being lazy. I mean, this is the guy who accused Tom Robinson of stealing his job.
It's funny, isn't it? But it also shows just how deep his prejudice runs. He can't see his own faults, so he blames everyone else.
Absolutely. And doesn't he, go back to the welfare office and just rant and rave about everyone?
He does. He blames everyone running the town, even Atticus, for getting him fired.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Total misplaced blame. But speaking of feeling threatened, we then have this scene with Judge Taylor. He's at home, just relaxing on a Sunday evening, and he hears this scratching sound. Turns out his screen door is open, and he sees a shadow.
Yeah, that part always creeps me out a little. It really highlights how vulnerable everyone is, even someone like Judge Taylor.
Totally. Even though he's a judge, he's still a target.
Right.
And the way he reacts is interesting too, right? He grabs his shotgun. It's like he knows there's a real danger out there.
Oh, yeah. Who wouldn't be freaked out? It makes you wonder if it's just Ewell trying to scare him or if there's something more going on.
Good point. But while Judge Taylor's dealing with this creepy intruder, Helen Robinson, Tom's widow, is facing her own issues. Even though Tom's dead, the prejudice against her hasn't gone away.
It's heartbreaking. She has to walk a mile out of her way to get to work just to avoid the Ewells.
I mean, that's just awful. It shows how the trial still affects everyone, even after it's over. But at least Mr. Linkdiaz tries to help, right? He gives Helen a job.
Yeah, he does.
Which is really decent of him.
It is. It shows he actually wants to do right by her and her family.
He's definitely a good guy in all of this.
Yeah.
But even Mr. Linkdiaz can't fully protect Helen from the Ewells. They start harassing her on her way to work, throwing stuff at her and making her scared.
And that's where Linkdiaz steps up again. He confronts them head on and threatens to take them to court if they don't stop. Like something out of a Western, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But it makes you think, does that actually solve the problem?
Yeah.
I mean, he's protecting Helen, but it doesn't change how prejudiced everyone is.
That's true. It's like he's putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg.
Yeah, exactly. He can't change everyone's hearts and minds. It takes more than just one person.
Definitely.
And that's where Aunt Alexandra comes in, right? She's worried about Bob Ewell and what he might do. Especially after that thing at Judge Taylor's house.
Oh, yeah, she's definitely worried.
But Atticus, he has a different take on it. He thinks Ewell isn't just looking for revenge.
Right, he thinks it's more than that.
He thinks Ewell is, hurt because he didn't get the recognition he thought he'd get after the trial.
That's a really interesting point. Could you expand on that a little?
Well, like Atticus says, Ewell thought he'd be seen as some kind of hero. But instead, people just ignored him and even made fun of him.
Oh, I see. So he's acting out because he feels like he was robbed of something he deserved.
Exactly. And all that, mixed with his prejudice, just fuels his anger. It explains why he might have tried to break into Judge Taylor's house, right?
Right, you're right. It all makes sense. Judge Taylor was pretty dismissive of him during the trial. Maybe Ewell saw that as some kind of personal attack.
It really makes you think about how, even when you try to be fair, people can still twist things around.
Yeah, that's true. Prejudice can really warp your view of things.
So on the one hand, we have Bob Ewell, all bitter and vengeful. But then, life in Maycomb seems to be going back to normal. Kids are in school, people are talking less about the trial, and Halloween's coming up.
There's definitely this strange contrast between the rising tension and the everyday routines of the town.
Yeah, it's like a calm before the storm. And speaking of Halloween, can we talk about that prank from last year? You know, the one with Mrs. Tootie and Fruity Barber?
Oh, yeah. The one where they stole all their furniture and hid it in the cellar.
And Mr. Tate, with his bloodhounds, just leads everyone straight to it. Hilarious.
It's a great example of how Lee can bring in humor, even when things are getting serious.
Absolutely. And then we have Scout in this year's pageant. She's going to be a ham.
Oh, right. I love that detail. It fits her perfectly, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. It's practical and, well, a little bit funny, too.
You can just imagine her waddling around on stage in that costume.
But even with all the excitement about Halloween, there's this underlying tension. Aunt Alexandra gets this feeling that something bad is going to happen, and Atticus is too tired to go to the pageant. It's like something's about to change.
Lee's great at building suspense, and those little hints definitely make you wonder what's going to happen on Halloween night.
Yeah, it feels like we're about to hit a turning point in the story.
Definitely. Like something big is about to happen. Yeah, it's almost like everyone in Macomb is holding their breath, just waiting for something to explode.
So as we wrap up this chapter, any last thoughts on chapter 27 and how it sets things up for the rest of the story?
Well, it's all about building suspense, isn't it? Lee uses contrasting moods, peaceful scenes with hints of danger. And then there's the foreshadowing.
Right, like those little hints that something bad's going to happen.
Exactly. It's all connected to the trial and its aftermath, like Bob Ewell's resentment, Judge Taylor's vulnerability, and Helen Robinson's struggle. It reminds us that justice isn't just a one-time thing, but a process, And for some characters, that process is full of danger.
Yeah, and it's even more messed up because most of Macomb seems to be moving on, like they're trying to forget about the ugliness of the trial.
Yeah, but the wounds are still there, right? And it just makes the threat of more conflict even stronger. It's like Lee's showing us how ignoring things doesn't make them go away.
And speaking of conflict, with Halloween coming up, do you think Scout's in for a quiet night of trick-or-treating?
Oh, I doubt it. With everything going on and knowing Bob Ewell, things are definitely going to get messy.
Yeah, I get that feeling too, especially with how the chapter ends. Jem and Scout go to the schoolhouse for the pageant. It's their longest journey together, Lee says. That's got to be some foreshadowing, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's like they're leaving the safety of their home and stepping into the unknown, a place where things could get really dangerous.
And it makes you think about what might happen to them, like they're about to lose their innocence or something.
Yeah, exactly. Lee's really good at making you feel the weight of those seemingly simple actions.
So as we move into the next chapter, what should we be thinking about?
Well, I think we should consider how this Halloween night might change Macomb forever. Who's going to step up when things go wrong? Who's going to break under pressure? And most importantly, will justice win in the end? Or is Macomb just going to stay stuck in its old ways?
Those are some heavy questions, and their answers are going to shape the rest of the story. We're definitely at a turning point here.
No doubt about it.
Well, thanks for all your insights. It's always a blast to break down these chapters with you.
Always a pleasure to dive into Lee's writing. I can't wait for our next deep dive.
Me too. And all our listeners, be sure to join us next time as we continue exploring To Kill a Mockingbird. Keep those pages turning. Oh, and we can't forget about Scout, right? She's going to be the world's biggest ham in that school pageant. Even with all this crazy stuff going on, Lee still manages to throw in those funny, lighthearted moments.
Yeah, it's kind of cool how she does that. It's like she's showing that even in a place like Macomb, with all its problems, there's still room for, simple joys.
Right, and that's part of what makes this book so great. It's not just doom and gloom. It's about real life with all its ups and downs.
Exactly. So as we move on from chapter 27 and get ready for Halloween night, I wanted to leave you with one last thought. We've talked about how the trial affected Bob Ewell, Judge Taylor, Helen Robinson, but what about Macomb itself? Did the town actually learn anything, or are they just trying to sweep it all under the rug and pretend it never happened?
Whoa, that's a good question. And I don't know if there's an easy answer. Lee doesn't give us all the answers, does she? It's up to us to figure things out.
That's what makes it so interesting, though, right? It makes you think. It makes you question things.
Absolutely. So before our next deep dive, keep those questions in mind. What can we learn from Macomb? How do our actions, even small ones, make a difference? And how can we create a world that's more just and compassionate?
Those are great questions to think about. Until next time, happy reading, everyone. And remember, our journey through Macomb's not over yet.
And be sure to join us for our next deep dive as we keep exploring To Kill a Mockingbird.